Hey everyone! We've been covering the Spectre and his time in the comics during the Bronze Age for a while now, but now it's time to bring that to an end. We'll be covering his final appearances in the 1980s, as for the third time for a Spectre solo series, his run is suddenly cancelled. Hooray! Before we get into that, new viewers should know we have been covering the entire history of this character all the way back to his early origins in the Golden Age, and are going to continue right on through this character's history until his most recent appearances. To see all of that, click on this button in the top right, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for future videos on the Spectre and other comic book characters. Now, let's begin. In the time after events surrounding Richard Redditch, the Spectre found himself drawn to a small village in Eastern Europe, recently destroyed. He could sense something evil at play here, and encountered a being called the Grey Man, a servant of the powerful mystic beings known as the Lords of Order. The Spectre knew of this Grey Man, who removed the dream essence from those recently deceased, to deliver to his masters. This vital role was important in sustaining the power of the Lords of Order. Both the Grey Man and the Spectre could detect that this village represented the beginnings of a new challenge that would keep them both quite busy. Not long after this meeting, the American iteration of the Justice League was dispatched to investigate this village. As he witnessed the arrival of this team, the Spectre wondered what part he would play in these events. The Grey Man asked if the Spectre planned to fight on behalf of the Lords of Order, but detecting the presence of Dr. Fate with the Justice League, the Spectre did not feel compelled to join the team as well, feeling that the Lords of Order were well represented here, and instead chose to watch only as an observer for the time. The Spectre focused his mind only on discerning why he felt compelled to be there to begin with, and he vowed to only act once he understood why that was. But once he did learn of this information, he promised to act with all the power under his command. The American chapter of the Justice League found their European chapter already operating in the village, and they were all attacked by the residents of this community who behaved in a strange way that resembled vampiric lore. In line with this, the attackers fled at the rise of dawn. The Spectre observed this with the Grey Man and later commented that things were far from over. He noted the Grey Man was content in filling the cosmic role consigned to him as a harvester of dreams, but the Spectre, having lost his connection with the presence, was filled with doubt and confusion, and had been for some time. The day continued as the Justice League worked to discover what had happened to the village. Local troops confirmed only what the superheroes themselves had already seen, that the villagers appeared to have destroyed their own home, turned into something akin to vampires, and now they attacked the village every night. That evening, the Spectre prepared to watch yet another attack take place, only to be surprised to find the Grey Man disappeared. Dr. Fate approached the Spectre, suggesting that his arrival, as another agent of order, may have driven the Grey Man away, for a time. Fate could sense the Spectre's presence and wanted to reach out to him, with the Spectre explaining his compulsion to be here. Dr. Fate warned the Spectre that the nature of the Lords of Order were changing. They had given up their once eternal war against the Lords of Chaos, and though still involved in the affairs of man, it was now only for their own purposes. Upon learning this, the Spectre opened a portal, and had him and Dr. Fate travel to the Lords of Order so they could learn more. Watching from afar, the Grey Man emerged from the shadows, speaking out loud of his plan to destroy the Spectre and the Justice League, before then conquering the Earth. The Grey Man had begun working with a scientist from a large company called Stag Industries. The scientist had invented the means to control the minds of humans en masse through a biological agent, and together they raised an army which, due to the symptoms of the mind control properties, acted like vampires. Meanwhile, in a mystic realm, the Spectre and Dr. Fate realized, all too late, they had been tricked by the Grey Man. They spoke of this to the Lords of Order, But as Dr. Fate had said, things had changed. The Lords of Order announced this was the time of Kali Yuga, a new age of fire, madness, and destruction. The primordial forces of order had withdrawn their interest in the mortal realm as such, until such a time when they might be able to once again gain control over the universe. Though Dr. Fate protested, the Lords of Order simply commanded him to deal with the scientist and the Gray Man himself, and warped the superhero back to Earth. Now alone, the Spectre was given a choice for how he might want to continue with this new information. The hero chose to stand with Dr. Fate against the Gray Man, with or without the Lords of Order and their help. Back on Earth, things were getting out of control very quickly. The Gray Man turned on the scientist and managed to grow himself to a colossal size, killing his own minion before preparing to do the same to Dr. Fate. Fortunately, it was at that moment that Spectre returned to Earth, though not alone. Accompanied not only by the Lords of Order, but also the Lords of Chaos, the Spectre confronted the Gray Man, using a language and form of communication so beyond human comprehension that the witnessing Justice League couldn't understand a word that was uttered. During this celestial level conversation, the Spectre explained that the Gray Man had gotten too greedy and gathered so much power he proved threatening to both primordial entities. With both lords now firmly aligned against the Gray Man, the greatest enemies in the universe set aside their differences to utterly decimate the Gray Man. The Spectre realized that this being was likely driven insane, as he was once a human and could not possibly fulfill the cosmic role consigned to him without eventually going mad. So he asked the Lords to show mercy on the being. They ignored this request, diminishing the Gray Man's powers so much that he was effectively lobotomized, doomed to continue mindlessly filling out his role of gathering dream essence for the Lords of Order from then on. With little else the Spectre could do, he left. Annoyed by this behavior, the Martian Manhunter noted he should have his government liaison, Maxwell Lord, look into the Spectre. However, unable to do anything about it at the moment, the superheroes like the Spectre returned home. There, the Spectre once again turned back into Jim Corrigan, who resumed his work with his detective agency. The staff of Cryptica Crimes gathered together to consider various cases, and settled on a supposedly haunted house in Pennsylvania. Corrigan tasked Betty Bumpus to look into this, knowing her psychic abilities would prove useful for this mission. He also had Bug and Armani look into Saran, who still hadn't returned. Steiner was told to remain on reserve for either party should they need assistance. Traveling out to Pennsylvania, Betty was startled to see within the haunted house a vision of herself, brutally killed, while the resident of the home, Angel Purvis, behaved oddly when she greeted her at the door. Betty met with the rest of the family, including Angel's mother and father, Robert and Barbara. They all had a strange way about them, and Bumpus was even more disturbed when the family had no reaction to a vase picking itself up off a shelf and flinging it at Betty's head. The family mentioned they were not a fan of this strange house or the weird events that happened around them, and they did try to move out a while ago, only to become very sick. It got so bad at one point they even went into a coma trying to escape the house. Robert was worried whatever was haunting them had also possessed his daughter. Betty was soon joined by fellow Cryptica Crimes investigator Gina, who also pretty quickly began experiencing disturbing phenomena, along with being attacked by a strange man and woman. When Gina screamed at her attackers, Betty rushed to her co-worker's aid, only to find nobody with the woman. Reporting all this to Corrigan, he quickly turned into the Spectre and raced off to help them. On his arrival, he quickly detected an evil energy penetrating the home. Within, the Spectre found a hidden plane of existence where he found a demon waiting for him. The demon had possessed Barbara's brother, a disturbed individual who Robert killed within the home years ago. The brother, named George, was burned in the house's furnace, and his spirit was both corrupted and possessed by the demon, and began tormenting the surviving family. The demon attacked the Spectre, pulling them both into the mortal realm through the body of Angel. With both the Spectre and Angel now possessed by the demon, they turned on Betty and Gina. Thinking fast and fighting possession of her own body by her alternate personality, Raka, Betty was able to pull herself and Gina into a pentagram, which the demon and his thralls were unable to pass. However, the Spectre was able to destroy the mystical seal quite quickly, which forced Gina to flee while the corrupted spirit sent Betty down a hole he created in the haunted house's basement. On the orders of the demon, the Spectre turned back into Jim Corrigan and began to hunt Gina down. After a prolonged chase that led everyone outside, including Betty, who managed to pull herself out of the hole, the possessed angel murdered her father as well as Betty. This snapped Corrigan out of the demon's control, and he turned back into the Spectre. In response, the demon emerged out of Angel's body and attacked the Spectre. After a short struggle, the Spectre managed to push this being into a fire, sending both the demon and George's corrupted soul to hell. Corrigan, however, was left dismayed to learn that Betty had not only been killed, but her soul had also been pulled into hell too. He begged the Spectre to go after her, but the spirit simply didn't want to. It explained that hell was part of the natural order of things, and it was not his place to go there. Last time he went to a hell domain, it was a deeply unpleasant and unsettling experience. The spirit couldn't stay very long, or else he could have very well become corrupted, turning into one of the most powerful weapons of hell. So the spirit left Jim to dwell on this, but with no other means to save Betty, all they could do was effectively rue the fact the woman was essentially doomed. And then the series was suddenly cancelled.